Hey folks, I wanted to talk about another gift to the oil companies that came in the big, beautiful bill that we didn't really get a chance to cover when all of that was going on. And that was reduced royalty rates on public land, on BLM land. Before I get into that, please like, follow, subscribe, share. Really appreciate all of my new followers. So what am I talking about? The big beautiful bill reduces royalty rates on federal land, that's U.S. taxpayer land, to 12.5%. And there are multiple reasons why I am opposed to this. One, it cheats the U.S. taxpayer big time. 12.5% was the original royalty rate that came out in 1920 under the Minerals Act. It's important to note that the average royalty rate across the United States on privately held land is about 18.75%. Now, in some places where you have high value acreage that produces a significant amount of oil, those royalty rates can go above that, 20, 22, 25% even. But 18.75% is the average across the nation. But the U.S. taxpayer only gets 12.5%, which means the oil companies get to pocket the more than 6% that's left over. Now, the 12.5% royalty rate had been in effect for over 100 years, and it was under the Inflation Reduction Act that under Joe Biden that it was raised to, I believe, 16.67%. Now, the argument here is that oil companies won't drill as much on federal public land unless we give them a sweetheart deal. Well, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them not drilling as much. They're just going to drill more on private land. It's not like it makes a difference. And if the average across the United States wasn't 18.75% and the new higher royalty was still lower than the average, not sure what the problem is, not sure why they would drill less. Unless, of course, oil prices fell. And that is exactly what happened in 2023 and 2024. Oil prices fell by about 15%. So oil companies drilled fewer wells and leased fewer acres. But they also did that on private land. Oil prices were dropping. Rig counts have been dropping since late 2022. Royalty rates are not what drives drilling. Oil companies fully understand and accept the royalty rates when they sign the leases. And so what they look at is the average price of oil over a 10 or 20 year period. But they do want to drill when oil prices are much better and when they are higher. And that is because the vast majority of a well's oil production occurs in the first year. Depending on the basin your well is in, probably 65 or 70% of your total production over the entire life of that well happens in the first 12 months. So they want oil prices to be good during that 12 months, regardless of the royalty rate. The idea is to get a total return on your investment in that first 12 months. Everything after that is just mailbox money, is what they call it. It's mailbox money. And honestly, the loss to the U.S. taxpayer on these lower royalties isn't huge. It isn't, some deal breaker. It's maybe $2 billion, depending on oil prices and oil production. But it's still $2 billion that oil companies are getting that's being taken away from taxpayers, as far as I'm concerned. And it would be more than $2 billion if the royalty was the same as the average across the country. That the amount I'm talking about is just the reduction from 16.67 down to 12.5, not 18.75. Another issue I have is what is called non-competitive leasing, which I think is a big problem on federal land. And that is because it invites a large amount of collusion into the leasing game. And so what non-competitive leasing is if there's a tract of land that goes up for auction, a lease sale, that's BLM land, and nobody bids on it, it can then be acquired through what's called non-competitive leasing for as low as $1 an acre. $1 an acre. So the oil companies can literally go in and talk to each other, divide up the land they want, and all agree that nobody will just lease on it. Nobody will bid on it. And then they'll go pick it up for $1.50 an acre after the auction's over. And oh, by the way, once they have the lease, they can sell it or release it to another company. So you get this acreage for $1 an acre, and then you sit on it for a year or two, and another company comes in and shows interest, and you can sell it to them. This article right here gives a great example of non-competitive leasing and reselling of leases, where a company in Wyoming acquired a lease from the BLM for $1 an acre. And they paid $1.2 million for the lease, only to later turn around and sell it for more than $50 million. And how much of that $50 million do you think went to the U.S. taxpayers? Exactly. So the point is, there's already a lot of shady, backhanded dealing going on when it comes to oil companies and the Bureau of Land Management. So the thought of doing them additional favors through legislation, the thought of returning billions of dollars back to them at the expense of the U.S. taxpayer, just doesn't sit well with me. It's just not a thing that should happen, period. And I can assure you, I'm one of the very, very few people in this industry that hold this opinion. Of course, the oil and gas industry wants the cheapest royalties possible. Of course they do. But that's because they don't think about the greater good. They don't think about, how they can benefit society. They just think about how much money can they put in their pocket. A lot of times we focus on the really big ways that corporations and companies in the United States sort of take from the American people. And in our process of doing that, we seem to miss the millions of little ways that they just skim off the top that equates to billions and billions of dollars collectively. We miss that because we're so focused on the few big things. But the truth is, all of the little things are much bigger collectively than the few big things. And those are the things we don't talk about. And they love that. They love those little things, those little skims off the top. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. I really appreciate all my new followers and subscribers. Please share. Hope you guys have a great, I got a squirrel, weekend. Thanks.